Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Jeffrey Epstein Show. I'm your host, Bobbycapucci, and this is a morning update. So currently, I'm speaking with a forensic accountant and trying to get them to come onto the podcast and speak a little bit about the money laundering aspect and the racketeering aspect in regards to the Jeffrey Epstein criminal enterprise. Now, this person that I'm talking to is somebody that really knows their business. Somebody that has been doing this for years and years and years. Somebody that's been involved with numerous gigantic organized crime cases. I'm talking La Cosa Nostra. I'm talking Mexican Mafia. I'm talking the biggest of the big. Somebody that really knows their business. Somebody that really knows how to chase down dollars that supposedly don't exist. So hopefully they'll come onto the podcast. They're a pretty private person, and they really don't like to interject themselves into things like this. So I'm doing my best to try and talk them into coming onto the podcast. But some of the things that they've been telling me as we've been talking about what's going on with the money aspect of the case has just blown my mind. He was just looking from the outside looking in, right? Doesn't have the facts of the case really. Doesn't, have any of the financial transactions, in front of them, blah, blah, blah. But from the overview of the case and just from looking at all the different places that the money originated from and then went to, and all the different transactions under shell corporations and the fake companies, et cetera, this person says there is zero chance that money laundering was not occurring within this criminal enterprise. And we know that the authorities believe money laundering was involved as well. Berman stated as much. So when you look at this case and you look at it in the big picture, the whole entire picture of the case, it's really hard not to put this into a slam dunk RICO category. It has all of the hallmarks. We have money laundering. We have human trafficking. We have threats. We have, you name it. Every single thing that you see in big racketeering cases, this case has all of that. And according to the person that I've been speaking to, this forensic accountant, they definitely said they can make the case. If they had all of the information, say that they were hired by the government or the lawyers for the survivors, this person says it would be a cakewalk, an absolute cakewalk to connect all of the dots. So hopefully I can get this person to come on and speak directly to you. As you know, when it comes to stuff like this, I prefer the source actually speaking directly to the audience, the same way I did with Maria. That way there's no gray area, right? There's no middle ground. You hear directly from the source, directly from the person who is the expert, and then, you go from there. It's one thing to hear journalists tell it or content creators tell you about it. It's a whole nother thing entirely to hear it directly from the source. So hopefully I'll be able to finagle that and have them pop onto the podcast for 30, 45 minutes at some point and discuss the money laundering aspect of the case. Now, as for today's article, we have an article from CNBC, and things are heating up between the Sycamore Partners and L brands. Sycamore is trying to back out of the deal to buy Victoria's Secret now. And there's a lot of talk what the reasoning is behind it, but it's obvious, for me anyway, what's going on. Sycamore is trying to cut their losses here because of the whole entire pandemic, and they're looking for more liquidity. But I don't know if they're going to be able to weasel their way out of this deal at this point. Now, we've seen Sycamore do this time and time again, and we noted that when they first bought Victoria's Secret, that Sycamore is not above this sort of thing. So let's jump into the article and see what CNBC has to say about it. Headline: Private equity firm Sycamore is trying to get out of deal to take over Victoria's Secret. The author, Lauren Thomas and Lauren Hirsch. Private equity firm Sycamore Partners is looking to back out of its deal to take over Victoria's Secret from L Brands, according to a lawsuit filed in a Delaware court on Wednesday. The deal for Victoria's Secret to be taken private was reached in February, just weeks before the coronavirus pandemic started hammering the U.S. economy and forcing the closure of thousands of retailer stores. Look, what do I always say when we're reading these articles, right? Read in between the lines. It's not really what they're saying, it's what they're not saying. And that's right here. They're telling you right here. The deal was reached in February, blah, 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 just weeks before the coronavirus outbreak. Well, yeah, of course. And now, well, you think it's just a coincidence that Sycamore is trying to back out, considering the absolute hammering brick and mortar retail's taking right now? A company like Sycamore is not playing games. These people are trying. They're burn and go, turn and burn, folks. That's the kind of group Sycamore is. It ceded a 55% share to Sycamore for $525 million, allowing L Brands to focus on running its better performing store, Bath & Body Works. Well, we know that there was a lot more to it than that, right? We know that Les Wexner is the elephant in the room when we're talking about the Jeffrey Epstein case. People are very, very, very tentative. And when I say people, I mean media outlets are very, very tentative to butt heads with Les Wexner. But guess what? I am not. I don't care about Les Wexner. He doesn't inspire one bit of fear in my heart. I'm not tentative when it comes to speaking about him, and I am certainly not tentative about putting his ass on blast for his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. It would be nice if the legacy media would jump on board, right? It would really be nice. Sycamore said in a filing that L Brands violated the transaction when it closed its stores and skipped rent payments in April. Sycamore is now seeking the court's approval to break the deal, according to the filing. Again, they're looking for an out, right? Sycamore is definitely looking for an out. They have buyer's remorse here, and they don't want anything to do with this right now. And considering that the Victoria's Secret brand did not pay its rent, and they were, They closed stores, they didn't pay rent, and that was in breach of the agreement, according to Sycamore. Now, if Sycamore truly believed in the brand, and they truly believed that they could rehabilitate the brand and bring it back to where it was, then Sycamore wouldn't even be doing any of this posturing right now. What they're doing here is they're trying to back out, use the pandemic as an excuse, and bring back that $525 million to put back into their portfolio because they're obviously bleeding cash right now. The terms of the transaction allowed for the possibility of a pandemic triggering a material adverse effect clause, which are typically included in deals to allow a buyer an opportunity to renegotiate should extraordinary events impact business. Boy, imagine that. All the deals that you hammer out as L Brands, all the deals that you hammer out as the Sycamore Partners, and all the time that you're hammering out these deals and you're putting in these clauses like the pandemic clause, for instance. You think anybody ever thought that that was going to occur? I mean, I'm sure there's somebody that deals with insurance that's sitting around that was like, all right, we need to put this clause in there. But I'm talking about normal people on the board, say, for Sycamore. You think they're sitting around, oh, well, there's going to be a pandemic, considering we haven't had anything happen like this in 100 years. Nobody's thinking about that. But here it is, the clause is in there. And I'll tell you what, Sycamore definitely has a case, in my opinion, here. They definitely have a case to back out of this, considering the clause, considering that Victoria's Secret did not pay its rent, and considering they closed stores. So it definitely looks like Victoria's Secret is in breach of contract here. So I'm interested to see where this goes. So far, there have been more than 2.5 million confirmed cases of COVID-19 worldwide, with at least 50,000 deaths from the virus in the U.S., according to data from Johns Hopkins University. L Brands said in a statement Wednesday that it intends to fight the suit and that Sycamore's efforts to end the agreement are invalid. Of course, L Brands is going to say that. They need that $525 million of liquidity, of that injection. Right? That was the whole reason that they spun off Victoria's Secret. I mean, obviously, we know the reason is the Wexner ties to Epstein. But looking at it from a financial aspect, they had to spin that off because it was a money pit for them. They were losing a ton of money. And they needed that $525 million to prop up Bath & Body Works and give themselves a nice cash injection. And now, if this deal doesn't go through, well, they're extra screwed. Now you have brick and mortar stores closed everywhere. Bath and Body Works are closed. So they're really hurting for money here. And if they have to lose out on this $525 million cash injection that Sycamore was sending them for the purchase of Victoria's Secret, it's going to be bad news for L Brands, folks. I'm talking bad news. L Brands will vigorously defend the lawsuit and pursue all legal remedies to enforce its contractual rights, including the right of specific performance, the statement said. Well, we know one thing about Victoria's Secret and L Brands and Les Wexner. They like a good court battle, right? And Wexner has all the money in the world to do that, so I wouldn't be surprised to see this one get drawn out in court. But from what I know so far about this story and about this situation, and from the evidence that's been presented, it looks like Sycamore has a real good case here. The company said it intends to continue working towards closing the transactions outlined in the proposed deal. Sycamore has taken battles to court before. Its investment in clothing retailer Aeropostale turned sour after the clothing brand accused Sycamore of helping to drive the company into bankruptcy. A bankruptcy judge ultimately took Sycamore's side in the dispute. This is what I talked about just a little bit ago. Sycamore is known for this kind of thing. They'll purchase one of these companies and then they have no problem taking them to court or completely and utterly thrashing them for a profit. And usually I'm not really big on these sorts of companies that do that, these investment vehicles like Sycamore. But when it comes to thrashing Victoria's Secret, I'm totally fine with it. I think Victoria's Secret as a brand should be just shattered. I don't think there's any way to rehabilitate that brand, and I think $525 million to purchase it is even too much. So I would not be shocked to see, when all of this is said and done, if Victoria's Secret as a product is either completely and utterly just stripped completely down or just gone altogether. The private equity firm has doubled down in retail even as its competitors have shied away. Other investments include Talbot's and Torrid. And right there, that gives you some more information, right? So Sycamore has doubled down in retail while most people are shying away. And now, with all of these stores being shut, all of these malls being closed, do you really think these brick and mortar stores and these companies that rely on them are going to be able to make their nut? Obviously not. So you have a company like Sycamore who is completely invested in these brick and mortar stores, in these retail shops, and now it is an absolute apocalypse for brick and mortar retail. And Sycamore is doing everything that they can to try and recoup that $525 million so they could slide that back in their portfolio to give them a little wiggle room. It's a dog-eat-dog world out there right now on Wall Street, folks. Its attempt to withdraw from the deal comes as L Brands tries to navigate the broader challenges facing the retail industry, as well as difficulties unique to its business. Yeah, okay, that's putting it kindly. It has struggled to revamp the Victoria's Secret brand as it has fallen out of touch with shoppers who have shifted away from its overtly sexy imagery. I don't really think that's the case, to be honest with you. I think people have other options now. Now that there are other options out there and people are starting to get hip to who Les Wexner is and what his company is about, you got to think there'd be less people shopping there. I don't think it has so much to do with overtly sexy clothes. Look, people want to look good, right? Girls want to look sexy. Girls want to wear nice clothes, lingerie and stuff. Nothing, that's what happens, right? So I don't really think that it's out of touch with its shoppers so much. I just think that they didn't diversify enough and offer other sorts of clothing for different varieties of girls, right? Bigger ladies, etc., etc. They were just hyper-focused on their one part of the market, and that's not going to get it done these days. That is certainly not going to get it done these days. You have to diversify, and you have to be able to hit every single part of the market if you're going to want to bring in those dollars, right? The company's founder, Les Wexner, has revealed close ties to the late sex criminal, pedophile, Jeffrey Epstein. Wexner plans to step down as chairman and CEO after the deal closes. So that's significant as well, right? If they don't close the deal, then that means Wexner is still the head honcho at the table, at least for now. You see, if Sycamore finds a way to back out of this, it's going to just crush the value of Victoria's Secret, and it's going to have to get pieced off. And I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't get liquidated at that point. If Sycamore finds a way to get out of this, I really don't know how L Brands will be able to maintain the Victoria's Secret brand as well as Bath and Body Works in this crazy ass time we're living in. L Brands on March 16th drew down $950 million from its revolving credit facility to bolster its liquidity during the pandemic. That's a huge amount of money, folks. $950 million from its revolving credit facility. Boy, their credit rating is just going to get thrashed when they can't pay this back. I mean, I don't know. I guess if the deal falls through, Wexner could come to the rescue himself and inject money into the product if he's willing to do that. I mean, he's sitting on a pile of cash like smog, but is he willing to do that at this point? I don't know. I really don't know the inner workings of L Brands right now, or what they're thinking, or what their strategy might be. But I can tell you this is bad news for them. This is really bad news for them. The company has also since suspended its quarterly cash dividend and furloughed the majority of its store workers. As of March 27th, it said it had more than $2 billion in cash on hand. And again, I wonder how much of that is old Les Wexner opening up the pocketbook and injecting some liquidity into the company. Sales at Victoria's Secret in North America fell 8% in 2019 to $6.81 billion. During the fiscal fourth quarter, L Brand's same-store sales dropped 2% overall, according to its latest earnings report. Sales were down 10% at Victoria's Secret, while they were up 10% at Bath and Body Works. Sycamore did not immediately respond to a request for comment, and I doubt they will. Sycamore plays things close to their chest. These sort of brokers, these sort of vehicles, firms, they're not going to divulge any information. They're playing Machiavellian chess right now. It's all about the dollars for these people. And guess what? That's what it should be. If I have my money in one of these vehicles, I want them pursuing the best deals. I want them playing the game. But if you're L Brands right now, and you're Les Wexner, and you have all of this other stuff going on already, the last thing you want is to have to get involved in just a long, hard-fought court battle with somebody like Sycamore, who can match Les Wexner when it comes to being able to pay for hotshot lawyers and dragging out a litigation. So I don't know if it'll come to that. They'll probably strike some sort of agreement before then with some sort of mediation or something like that. But it's interesting to watch this story as it unfolds. It's very interesting to see where this all goes, because we understand that Victoria's Secret has played such a huge part in the Jeffrey Epstein story overall, and we know what Jeffrey Epstein was using that company for, and we know at this point that Les Wexner totally knew what was going on. In my opinion, Wexner knew the whole entire thing, and I'll take it a step further. Wexner knew all of it, in my opinion. Not just that Jeffrey Epstein was gross, but about the whole entire honey trap, etc., etc. The media needs to stop being so scared of Les Wexner. The legacy media needs to stand up and do some real investigating into who Les Wexner is, what he's up to, what he was up to, and certainly what his involvement was when it comes to what happened with Maria Farmer on his ranch. These are all things that Les Wexner needs to answer for. And to this date, nobody has had the courage to really dig into his into his behavior. Nobody has the courage to do that. And it's because Wexner is so well placed amongst the elite. And remember, folks, most of the media in this country is controlled by 5 companies. So that means 5 other billionaires that I'm sure Wexner is rubbing elbows with. So it shows you the sort of deviousness we have to deal with from the legacy media. They all have handlers, right? The legacy media. They can't publish what they want. And I'm not so much talking about the actual, the journalists who are doing the stories. My biggest gripe is with the editors. Now, don't get me wrong, there's some journalists that are just pieces of work as well. But these editors and the owners of these legacy media outlets, they're so scared to go after people like Wexner. They are so scared to do the real hard reporting nowadays. So it's left to investigative journalists and content creators, etc., etc. So that's cool. That's fine. If they don't want to step into that void, we will. And we will continue to talk about Wexner. We will continue to talk about his involvement with Jeffrey Epstein. And we will continue to cover this whole entire sale of Victoria's Secret and the battle with Sycamore Partners moving forward. If you'd like to contact me, you can do that at bobbycapucci@protonmail.com. That's BOBBYCAPUCCI@protonmail.com. You can also find me on Twitter at BOBBY_CAPUCCI. Coming up next week, I'll be talking with Maria a little bit more, hopefully, and we'll have some other fun things on tap. I'm trying to get a couple of more guests onto the program to talk about, like I said, the RICO case, and then a couple of other surprise guests that I'm talking to that hopefully will come onto the program and speak directly with you, the greatest listeners in all of podcasting. All right, everybody, please enjoy your Saturday as much as possible, and I will be back later on tonight with a little bit more.